Hello, this is Alan Folmsbee here, and today I have a serious subject to speak about, and this is about the Quarks being on academic probation. Now, the debate is on, and you're all invited to the debate on a Zoom interview, Zoom meeting. And I'm going to adjust the picture right now. And then we'll get going in just a second here. And so here's my laboratory for theoretical physics. My name's Alan Folmsbee. I have a Master of Science degree in electrical engineering. And the quark theory is not something I want to spend a lot of time studying in college. So I didn't get a PhD in physics, but I did figure out the shape of the iron nucleus. I'll spin around the model for you. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint presentation here. Now the thing is that you are invited to the debate against the quark theory, and I hope some people will show up to speak in favor of quarks also. This is just one side of the debate, and it's going to be on Saturday, December 3rd at 2 o'clock Eastern Time for the dress rehearsal. Since this will be my first time doing a Zoom meeting, I want to do the dress rehearsal, and then 1 week later on December 10th at 2 p.m. we'll have more people invited. Like I'll invite a senator, 2 institutes, a national laboratory, and the Nuclear Science Advisory Committee at the Department of Energy, plus quite a few other people will be invited. But I don't know how many people are going to show up. So first, let me just tell you a little about quarks and quantum chromodynamics, because some people are not familiar with it very much. And atoms are made up of nuclei, and the nuclei are made up of protons and neutrons. And according to the quark theory, inside each proton, there's 3 quarks. That was devised by Murray Gell-Mann and Yuval Ne'eman around 1961. And they're saying that inside of protons there are 3 quarks and a zoo of particles. You see, in laboratory collisions, they saw jets appearing from the collisions of protons and electrons. 3 or 4 jets came, and they imply that 3 quarks are in a proton. In addition, there's a whole family of particles inside there. Not inside the quarks. They claim those are fundamental, but they make many, maybe 100 different particles, like the W boson, the Z boson, the Higgs boson, gluons, gravitons, pions, mesons, K mesons, hyperons, lambda hyperon, psi hyperons, the omega minus. And these quarks can sometimes have a strange charm, and magic numbers are also useful in old science. I'm introducing an alternative to the quark theory, and I'll be going into quite a bit of detail on that. But during the collision investigations, electron-positron annihilation was experimentally observed. Now, the quark theories really provide no practical results. It's all kind of pure research. And really, they're wasting money and expertise at a time when global warming really needs physicists to step up to the more difficult task of preventing the ice caps from melting. However, the quantum chromodynamics people are attempting to have a totalitarian control of the nuclear physics theory. And they have no practical goals in their long-range plans. A practical goal might be to find out the shape of the carbon nucleus, or the iron nucleus, or uranium or something. But no, their goals are very modest, and they are just like pure research, pretty much, with billions of dollars spent on colliders, experiments. Now, the experiments are valuable, and those laboratories could be used to support my theory. But no, the Energy Department has not transferred their resources to any other nuclear theories. There's just the QCD. And their methods do not include geometric methods, which mine are featuring. And now the quark theory is a wrong theory, and even wrong theories get right answers, but rarely. Good results are published, but bad results, well, who knows? I don't think they report too much about bad results. And inside, there is a particle zoo. Now, as I was pointing out, there's many different particles in the quark theory and quantum chromodynamics. And if gravity is not understood by those physicists, they invent the graviton. If the strong nuclear force is not understood, they invent the gluon. If they see a spark in a collision, they invent a new particle to give it a name. And I believe that QCD is a wrong theory that uses wrong methods. Now, I've been going to various meetings at the Nuclear Science Advisory Committee, and they've had town hall meetings at MIT and a national laboratory, and they tell right up front they don't want any dissent at the town hall meetings at MIT or Argonne National Laboratory. Now, when I was looking at it last week on a Zoom meeting there, they showed the carbon nuclear shape that quark theory has proposed. And in the next image, I'm going to show you two competing images of the carbon nucleus. Now, the Nuclear Science Advisory Committee was already informed about putting quarks on academic probation. Time has run out for polite town hall meeting chatter. We need intervention. I'm intervening to reduce governmental waste on quantum chromodynamics. So here are the theoretical carbon shapes. On the left, we see the one that was shown at Argonne Laboratory for the QCD. You see 3 white dots. Apparently, this means one side of the carbon nucleus has 3 protons at a right angle. On the right side of the figure, you see my idea for the static nucleus theory using the face-armored cubic lattice. And you see the 3 white protons on one side of the nucleus are not at a 90-degree angle. They're at a 135-degree angle in order to form a hexagonal close-packed surface. This geometric consideration is important, and the quark theory ignores geometry pretty much. The hexagonal close-packed surface has very small gaps between the nucleons, but a cubic lattice has large gaps. So let me tell you a summary of defects in the QCD theory. And actually, I have a model here of carbon. Before we get to those defects in the quark theory, let me show you the good things about my theory. Here is the cube at the center of the carbon nucleus with the white protons and the orange neutrons. And you see there's a big gap in a cubic lattice there, which makes it vulnerable. But the hexagonal close pack has small gaps between the nucleons. And this is, I believe, the correct theory of carbon because it makes 2 planes of protons. See, on top, those 3 make 1 plane, and on the bottom, the other 3 make a second plane. That's why graphite has flat crystals. So let's go back to the the defects in the quantum chromodynamics theory. The three quarks inside the proton misinterpret the meaning of charge. They claim that some quarks have 1/3 of the charge of a proton, and other quarks have 2/3, plus or minus. So, really, charge is a category of particles. There's protons, electrons are charged. But the magnitude of the charge is only important for things like the charge to mass ratio. And this is really overlooked in the quantum chromodynamics. And the particle zoo continues growing to hide misunderstandings. They've had a few theoretical successes, like the Higgs boson was supposed to predict the mass of particles, which it doesn't do. And they've had successes really probably from adjusting 100 dials during their theoretical calculations. They take collisions and excellent laboratory work, and I applaud the experimentalists who've really gone to great extents to try and prove the quark theory is right, even though it's wrong. Now, the quantum theory shuns mechanistic ideas and human reasoning. They have energy-centric ideas that limit the value of any publications they make. Nuclear structure is only about energy levels, according to them, not the shape of nuclei. When they show nuclear shapes, they're very crude after 60 years of trying. Insides of the protons were prematurely investigated before the nuclei were investigated. Even atoms today are shown as a blurred cloud of probability locations for where are the electrons. They don't know, but they want to jump right ahead to inside the proton and claim to understand what's inside it when they don't know what an atom is doing. They don't know what a nucleus is doing. They went too far. Now, alternative theories exist, and they are ignored. So here's one of the alternative theories. The charge distributions on the nuclei. It's a book you can read, 535 pages and 466 images of things like nuclei. For example, the nucleus of Oganesson, you can see in the background there, is rotating around, and that's the heaviest element in the periodic table. It has 118 protons and a total of 294 protons and neutrons. And there's a new law of physics I've introduced saying protons form lines of protons. That's why iron is a ferromagnetic element. For example, here's a model of iron with the green protons and white neutrons. And there's two rings of protons that cause ferromagnetic effect. So getting back to the book, it comes really, the hardcover book really comes from a 19-volume electronic book. Now, you can get the Kindle ebook for $4 for volume 2, or you can get the whole hardcover book for $117. Also, I have a paperback book called Nucleus Structure from Sphere Stacking. That's based on the static nucleus theory. This is a competitor against the dynamic nuclear theory, which is also popular amongst other physicists, where they think they're changing, they're getting long and short, and but how could iron be so consistently ferromagnetic if it were not static? A fixed location of protons is essential for a stable quality bar magnet. Now, the static nucleus theory says that a cube of protons and neutrons is at the center of most elements. The 6 faces of the cube are armored by pyramids of nuclei. So let me bring in a little model here of one of these things. There's the cube. Like in iron, There's a 3-layer cube with 27 protons and neutrons. There's 8 protons there in white at all the corners. They're repelling each other, like electrostatic repulsion is putting them in those positions. On each face of the cube, there goes a little pyramid to cover up and protect the cubic lattice, and so that the outside part has the hexagonal close pack. So in this model, you can see the cube in the middle here, and the little pyramids are covering the other faces, so that it makes a ring of protons on one side. It's hard to see the cube from this kind of view. The entire outer surface is covered by an excellent hexagonal close-packed surface. All right, now back to the description here. Protons form lines of protons outside of the cubic stack. The gravity volume theory is something I devised in 2015, and that might explain the strong nuclear force. And I'll be going into that in great detail, showing you actually algebra concerning that. So here's another thing that is important, is that by using my theory, uranium fission is explained very well. It's well known by other scientists that when uranium breaks up into 2 pieces, there's a large piece and a small piece. And on the top you see before fission. In the middle, you see during fission, we have the large chunk on the right, the big pyramid and the cube, but on the left is a smaller amount of nucleons, 75, made out of 5 pyramids. So at the bottom we see a graph showing a famous graph of, it's called the bimodal mass distribution of the fission fragments. And on the right, you see one group has abundant fission yield for elements less than a number 159. The mass number of 159 comes from the big chunk on the right of the picture. On the left, you see all the light fission fragments have a mass greater than 75. And that happens to be exactly the number of nucleons in the 5 pyramids in the diagram. And this one free neutron is released for the chain reaction. And you can see that they all add up. 75 plus 159 in the 2 chunks, plus the free neutron equals uranium-235. Now, another advancement I've made in this alternative theory, which is far more advanced than the standard physics, this is the atomic scale formula, where the 2.41 times 10 to the minus 10th meters on the right is about the size of an atom. That's the atomic radius of a large element. And it's equal to this formula I discovered, the mass of a proton divided by the radius of a proton times alpha is the charge of the proton divided by 4 pi times the Bohr radius. Alpha is the fine structure constant, and A is the Bohr radius. And so most elements are less than 2.41 angstroms in size. Also, I've come up with the formula for Newton's G. Now, when Einstein was formulating his theory of relativity, he put a very fancy-looking formula together, but it includes G, Newton's gravitational constant. And they've disguised that by calling it kappa. Seems like they're ashamed to admit that they don't know why gravity has a certain strength. So they had to throw G into their general theory of relativity. Now, I've figured out why G has that value that Newton discovered. G is equal to the volume of a proton divided by 2 times the mass of a proton and also divided by tau seconds, where tau is a universal gravitational time constant of 5.12 nanoseconds. And that was derived from this equation in the middle here. NV over tau equals ZA over 1 second, where N is the number of baryons in the Earth, that's protons and neutrons. V, the volume of a proton. Tau, the 5 nanoseconds. Z is the height fallen in 1 second. Like if Newton takes an apple and drops it from a tree and it takes 1 second to hit the ground, it falls 4.9 meters. And A is the surface area of the Earth. And this is explained in my books. Now, and one important, profound fact then from this is that time grows out of matter as space drains in. And the equation at the bottom here explains that the magnitude of the volume of a proton is equal to the magnitude of 5 nanoseconds. So atoms are looked at as a bunch of electrons in a cloud. And it's so hard to see a nucleus that people have tried and really failed to see what a nucleus looks like. But according to my theory, here's what a nucleus looks like. This is the nitrogen nucleus, and it you can see the 3 white protons there around the edge connecting to a central S proton. Now the thing is that these are white protons, black neutrons, and nitrogen is well known for having a triple bond. That's why nitrogen is used in explosives, and that's why the air has nitrogen molecules that don't get oxidized. That bond is so strong. And this is why the nucleus has a 3-way set of protons that cause the triple bond. At the very center is a core proton, and that's connected to the s orbital electron. And as chemists know, there's 2 electrons in the s level of an atom. That's because there's 2 protons inside the core of a nucleus. Let me show you a model of that. Oh yeah, here's the model of the cube at the center of nitrogen. 2 white protons and 6 orange neutrons. So it's not a coincidence that there's 2 protons in the center of the nucleus and there's 2 electrons in the center of the atom, because they're directly related to each other. And this is a breakthrough which standard physicists do not want to hear about yet. I expect they'll be listening closer in the near future. So moving along to the next part, these cubes come in 3 sizes for the first 118 elements. First, there's the top has a 4-layer cube, the bottom left a 3-layer cube, and on the right the 2-layer cube I just showed you. Now, I've come up with a formula for mass. According to the quark theory, the Higgs field determines the mass of objects. And according to my ideas, it's more of a geometric understanding where the mass is an area. Space is treated as a liquid and mass is like the area. But so the formula here is very hard to do, harder than using geometry. Sure, I can speculate in a philosophy about the geometry of mass being an area, and it makes sense to me. But what about algebra? How can I take standard physics and show algebraically that mass equals area, like the area of a parachute? And you can't do it. You cannot take the kilogram on one side of a formula and have it be equal to anything useful on the other side. To define what is a kilogram, what is mass, However, it is easy to multiply the mass times the capacitance and get something meaningful on the right-hand side. And so that's why the formula here is kilograms times farads equals square meters times square seconds. I've done that by considering that for an electrical engineer, we know that electron mobility is the same as conductance, except in magnitude. So the next equation is that square meters per volt second is mobility, and that's equal to the conductance, which is the inverse of the ohm. So resistance is known by many people in the audience, and Ohm's law, like V equals IR, voltage equals current times resistance. And conductance is just 1 over resistance. So the formula for conductance is the coulomb per second divided by a volt. So by comparing those two formulas for mobility and conductance, you can see that you can cancel out the denominators. Volt second is on the denominator on both sides. Now by canceling out the denominator, you're left with square meters equals coulombs, which is called Q, the electrical charge. Let's take a break for 6 more seconds. All right, we're back to the formula for mass. All right, like I was saying, we've now got to the part where we know that charge is area. In bold it says square meters equals coulombs. So we're going to use that in the remainder of this algebra. By definition, capacitance is the farad is charge divided by voltage. So if you have a big capacitor, you get more charge per volt. Now a volt is energy per charge. So you get Q squared over energy is equal to the farad. Now energy is kilogram meter squared per second squared. So as a result, the farad is Q squared second squared kilogram meter squared. Now we can convert that now using the fact that the coulomb is square meters. It gives farads equals meter squared times second squared per coulomb. Rearranging that, we get the final answer, kgf equals m squared s squared. Mass times capacitance equals area times square seconds, which implies to me that mass equals area and capacitance equals square seconds. Thank you very much. Mass is area. It's like the area of a parachute. Space is treated like a liquid going into planets. Gravity is consuming space like a liquid going down the drain. And time is growing out. And that's the conservation of continuum. Space drains towards a star at the speed s. And now the speed is faster near a star and slower far away from a star. Now, you also know that space, let me start again. The speed of light is invariant for every object. So no matter how fast you travel, the speed of light is the same. And the same, I'm claiming the same is true of space. For gravity, space draining in to a star or planet is invariant to an object. Time grows out of a star at the speed c. The speed of light is the speed of time. So time is invariant compared to an object, and space has a speed that's invariant compared to an object. Time causes acceleration when combined with s, the speed of space. Mass is an area of a parachute-like phenomenon in liquid space. So if you try to accelerate the mass, the parachute will resist that acceleration. Light travels at the speed of time. So the reason I'm telling you all this compared to quark theory is that the strong nuclear force could be gravity. Time is thicker where it exits gaps between nucleons. When you get very close to a nucleus, time is different and space is different. It becomes compressed as it is absorbed. Space is absorbed into the nucleus, and time is emitted out of each proton and neutron radially at the speed c. And as it emerges from tiny gaps between the big nucleons, time is thicker. So any equation involving derivatives of time, like the acceleration is the derivative of velocity, will affect it. So by using the chain rule, we can apply that to the thick time and get higher derivatives of time, like this partial derivative equation I show here. Now in this force equals A times B plus C times D something, those letters are just coefficients. The important part is the partial derivative, dt dr, the change of time as it gets farther from the nucleus, where r is a distance from a gap to an incoming baryon, like a neutron. Say a neutron's going to collide with a nucleus and get stuck there by the strong nuclear force. As it gets closer, r gets smaller, the radius, the distance between the incoming object and the nucleus becomes smaller, and the time gets thicker as it gets there. And so the second factor there is d squared s divided by dr dt is another partial derivative. So the chain rule makes them multiply together. And then the next term is just a rough draft of a calculus equation. The constant c to the 8th power helps gravity become immensely strong. And the partial derivative, the 4th partial derivative of time, as it gets closer using the radius, also enhances the strength of gravity tremendously. And this partial differential equation can go out to the 8th order in time or the 20th order. And that's why the strong nuclear force could be gravity. Thank you very much. So let's talk about the speed of space. So like I was saying, according to the gravity volume theory, space is draining into the Earth and time is coming out. Now the speed of space, like I said, is invariant relative to a falling object. So if the object is falling to Earth at 1 mile per hour, the speed of space might be 2 meters per second. And if the object is falling to the Earth at 1,000,000 miles per hour, the speed of space is still the same, 2 meters per second. And then the acceleration is caused by time being involved with the speed of space. Now, this is useful for a nova explosion. At a star's surface, this equation holds. The speed of space equals Vr rho over 3m tau, where V is the proton volume, R is a star's radius, rho is mass density, like kilograms per cubic meter of stuff in the white dwarf star, m is a proton mass, and tau is 5.12 nanoseconds, which I already explained. So now as the speed of space approaches c, the speed of light, the speed of time, the star has a nova explosion. So global warming is motivating invention of a new energy source. And I'm stepping forward to attempt to produce a clean energy source over the next 3 years. The quark theory is useless to prevent global warming. And the government resources are being wasted on quark theories and quantum chromodynamics. I want the government to put money into my theory and do collider experiments in their giant vacuum chambers to investigate the ideas which I'm telling you today. This breakthrough in nuclear data enables other inventors also. It's not up to me. I'm just writing books and communicating these new ideas. They're 200 years more advanced than quantum chromodynamics. I'm providing the position data for all the protons and neutrons in all of the elements. And other scientists can connect nuclear protons to molecular electrons. So please do that. I can't do it alone. Here's a link at the bottom of the following website, which gives a small text file giving the coordinates of every proton and neutron in every element. It's only 229 kilobytes, but it's the plain text of reality. And the website's pyramidalcube.blogspot.com/p/thoroughness.html. Here's the periodic table of nuclear silhouettes. And you can see some of the nuclei are pear-shaped, like near the bottom. You see they have a big top and small bottom of the nucleus. Some of the nuclei are like squares, like iron. Oh yeah, here's a close-up of iron at the top left. And cobalt and nickel are also ferromagnetic, but copper is not. That's because adding one more proton to get copper causes a short circuit between the ring of protons and something else. So my books cover this quite in detail, showing every element in very great detail. So we should stop global warming using a new source of energy, clean energy, or we can just build walls. Like at the COP27 conference recently, we realized we could just pay trillions of dollars, trillions of euros to make islands taller. The Maldives Islands is asking about this. They'd like a few $1 billion to make their islands taller. Or we could also pay $2 trillion to build a wall around Florida. Then, as the oceans rise, the walls would not be able to flood the shoreline hotels. As an alternative, people could give me a few $1 million to build up a team of inventors for the generator. I've already applied for a grant from a bunch of benevolent billionaires. I've asked for a $2 million grant, and I expect they will be glad to help out to prevent global warming. As an alternative to using my ideas, you could just let the quark theory do it. You can just wait for them to figure out how to solve global warming. So here's a proposed 200-year schedule for quantum chromodynamics to solve humanity's warming problem. Imagine what it'll be like when the temperature's 140 degrees Fahrenheit. I wouldn't like that. So in 2022, the quark theory could tell you that carbon shape might have 6 protons and 2 triangles, like I showed you that photograph from Argonne Laboratory Town Hall meeting. Now, by 2050, they could figure out that oxygen protons form a double helix, like my theory has already shown. By 2090, they would come to the remarkable conclusion, which I did already, that iron has 2 rings of protons in theory. By 2130, they'll know that platinum catalyst has lines of protons for a hook shape. In 2180, electron-guided fusion would seem like a natural occurrence in the stars, and they may try and emulate it here on Earth. And by the year 2222, home generators would go on sale from fusion. Imagine what it'll be like in 200 years from now if we burn as much coal as we love, the oil, just to get by. We'll build walls around New Orleans. We'll raise the levees up 30 feet higher than they are today. The low islands around the world, we'll just import mud and build those islands up 30 feet taller than they are today. Then we don't need clean energy. We can wear spacesuits and portable air conditioning units to be able to take a walk out in the 120 degree temperatures, 140 degrees. That's just the low temperature. The minimum temperature in Connecticut, 140 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. I'd rather take a chance on doing something about it. Now, the understanding which I'm promoting was due to iron. That was the key breakthrough. On May 25th, 2017, I discovered the shape of the iron nucleus. New laws of physics were proposed. Protons form lines of protons. Other elements use the same rules. The hexagonal close-packed surface on the iron nucleus is the same on almost all elements. You can read about this on the website pyramidalcube.blogspot.com. Now I'm planning to have a debate with other scientists showing that quark theory is on academic probation. And you can be in the debate and get the codes for the Zoom meeting. Just send an email to me at folmsbee@protonmail.com. On December 3rd at 2 p.m., 2022, I'm having a dress rehearsal Zoom meeting on the subject. This will be my first Zoom meeting, so I'm not sure my technical skills are going to work out very well, so that's why it's only a dress rehearsal. And this meeting will allow dissent and support for quarks and quantum chromodynamics. I'm hoping this will affect the long-term plan of the Nuclear Science Advisory Committee. Here's the contact information. This whole PowerPoint presentation is available, and it's linked at the bottom of this website I'm showing. pyramidalcube.blogspot.com/p/thoroughness.html. My email address here in Connecticut is folmsbee@protonmail.com. And you can be invited to the Zoom conference, and I will give you the secret codes that will allow you to get in there and show your face, say a few words. Here's my phone number, 808-269-8893 during this year. And my name is Alan Folmsbee. I have a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Connecticut in 1989. I used to work at big corporations like Intel, AMD, and Sun Microsystems. I have 15 U.S. patents on electronic and optical inventions. Also a bunch of foreign patents also, uncounted. international patents, probably Japan and Europe. So that's about all I have to say for today. I'm just going to sign off now.